Good morning. Good morning. It is Thursday, October 19th. This is Sharpened Perspectives podcast, episode number 12. I'm Jim Vandeveld of HMC Knives / HMC Manufacturing, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Kenneth Spalding of Zodiac Engineering and Alex Steingraber of SPK Limited. What's up, boys? How you guys doing today?
Good, you? Yeah, today's the 18th, though, right? Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, I guess when we drop it, it's the 19th. Yeah.
See, I'm finally thinking ahead. Like, what day is this going to be released on? Behind the fourth wall. Yes, it is the 18th, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Our new recording day because Monday and Tuesday we're still knocking the rust off from the weekends. I am back in action. Thankfully, big thanks to Alex for in his near debut, holding it down when I was unable to record due to the constraints that I had surrounding my trip to Montana last week. I got to be honest, I feel like I'm just starting to be able to breathe and gain consciousness, even though I returned on Monday. It's just been a weird integration back into reality. But anyways, what are you guys up to today? We were kind of shooting the shit before we got started, but we really didn't talk about what you guys had going on in the shop.
So I am assembling a bunch of knives. I got 65 that I need to assemble. Currently assembling 15, I think is the goal today. And I got a bunch, 25 over there that are done. So just cranking on that.
What about you, Kenneth?
Nice, yeah. I did a drop on Saturday and then sold the remaining 4 datums that I had. So I'm just packing those up today. Just throwing a final edge on them and packing them and shipping them. I shipped all the coins and a couple knives yesterday and then just doing the rest today. So
I didn't order a coin. I wanted to. I
got a couple more. Yeah. I have a couple more.
Very nice.
I saved you guys one. So
thank you, man. How much did you end up selling them for? I didn't even look. $100?
Yeah, $100.
Nice.
So, and I was thinking, I'm like, it's kind of high for it. But when I'm thinking about all my cycle time and all my handling time and material costs and everything, like it ends up being $100. So I'm like, it's fair for the amount of work that I have into it, whether that's, people think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I've paid over $100 for a coin that was probably fucking die-struck lead coated in brass from China, but whatever.
I mean, I think that it depends on how you do it. If you're using them for photography purposes, or if you have the intent that a lot of guys have that they use them for, which is like additional lottery entries, if you're a coin holder, that kind of stuff. And especially because you used a premium material. Like I think a lot of guys are using like brass or they're using aluminum or like a cheaper material. But I think because you chose to use titanium, I think that there's a value that commands just by the nature of what it is. Also, it kind of leaves the door open for, because you properly priced that, now you can price ultra premium ones like a zirconium coin or black Timascus or zircotai or something. If you use those, then there's not a huge price disparity, which is like, Zirc one is 150 and a titanium Damascus one is 250. You know what I mean? And like that makes sense based on your pricing structure. So I think you did yourself a service by choosing to price it that way.
No, yeah, I think it worked out pretty good. And I sold enough. I mean, I made 13 of them and I sold, I think 10 total between the 2 drops.
Sick.
So I have a couple more. This one has there's a little blem on this one, but I mean, they're cool. They're thick too. They're like 3/16 thick, inch and 3/4 diameter. So
I want to blacken that sumbitch.
I know. I was thinking about that. Would be cool. I made one for Hudson, and I on the second side I just engraved a capital H on it for him.
Nice.
He's like, I want one of those, but I want it blue and I want it with an H on it. So I'm like, all right. So I threw it in just hit it with a torch, turned it blue. So
nice. Say less, buddy.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, exactly. So he was stoked on it. But yeah, they're cool. I mean, I want to do some different stuff on the back of them. This was kind of just same thing on both sides, just to kind of get some out there. But I don't plan on doing more that are exactly the same. So it'd be kind of nice to do maybe 10 or 20 of each one, and periodically, every few months or whatever, just drop some.
I mean, I think that it's a nice idea to even monthly to have a drop. It incentivizes, even if you were to say, my monthly drop, in order to get a coin, you have to buy a knife or that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And then you could kind of make it a little bit more, not elite, but whatever, like a little bit more rare, whatever the word is, you know, just to, at first anyways, to like make it so that, you know, the only people that really support the brand like have access to purchasing one, you know, almost like it's a club or something like that. But yeah, that's sweet. Those are awesome. I think that the accoutrements, you know, accessory pieces like that, if you have the opportunity or the time to do it, I think that they're always cool and people appreciate them, especially because most of this stuff, pictures are so key. You love having like accent materials, like, or cool shit in the background of pictures that you're taking that makes sense.
Exactly. But, especially with like some texture and detail to it, and like having like kind of the shadows and stuff on the tool paths and everything, it helps. So it looks cool. There's actually been a bunch of people posting in both of our Facebook groups. Our stuff kind of cross posting now, which is nice because I've got some knives out there, and then guys that have your knives have my coins or my knives as well, which has been cool to see on the Facebook group. So
it seems like there's been some inherent support crossover, you know what I mean? Where it's like, whether it's guys that found out about me through you, or probably more recently just refound out about you through me, just because we've been doing this and like you're getting your foray back into knives. Like I've noticed that a lot of like my better customers are like totally hyped on what you have going on too, which I'm stoked about because those are like good ass guys.
Everybody that's bought one of the Datums so far has been awesome. So
yeah, have you gotten any constructive criticism yet, or is it just like people are just keeping? Yeah, of course. I love that. Don't you love that?
Yeah. No, there was actually one guy I was going to say that has one of all three of our knives that posted that recently. That was cool. That was actually really cool.
That was sweet.
I got the Sharpened Perspectives trio or whatever. It was all three of our knives together. That was fun.
Gang.
Yep.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, what were you saying? Sorry, I already forgot what you just asked me.
I don't remember what I asked you either.
Yeah, constructive criticism. Yeah, and it was all stuff that I already have written down on the revisions for the next ones that I've already got. I already ordered everything except the blade material for those. So I should be getting parts and material any day. Hardware, screws and bearings and
nice
stuff. So all of the constructive criticism, any of the feedback that I received was already stuff that I was already kind of telling people at Maker Syndicate about revisions, or that you and I have talked about on here. Just lengthening the lock bar where you can actually access it, because it's only like maybe a 1/2 inch or 5/8 long. So just making that longer, adding some chamfers in the inside of the frame so you can get some more access to your thumb in there. And then also the main one for me is going to 1/4 inch bearings, but sticking with a 3/16 pivot.
Yeah.
And then face grooving the bearing pocket rather than a counterbore to move the bearings out, which will add some stability, but mainly so that I can have a solid section of titanium in the frames that's thicker. So the pivot is more supported rather than just like a very thin section of the frame where you've got, your screw head and then a really thin section of the frame and then washers and then bearings. So you only have, 20, 30 thou of tie. So by going to a 1/4 inch bearing, you could now have like 100 thou thick section, roughly whatever it ends up being. I have to measure it, but 100 thou thick tight bore for the pivot to fit in there. So you can't shear the frames as easy. Like if you open them on most knives, you can do it. But if you open it and you really wrench on the blade sideways, you can shift the frames, which throws off your centering. Yep. So hopefully this will help keep things a lot more stable.
I like the change, man. I've been working in that direction myself of just I have been procrastinating on like manufacturing new fixtures. That's really what it comes down to, is like I use 440s and I'd have to make new pallets to support the different hardware. And like, I want to switch to 256 and to a 3/16 pivot barrel so that I can do that with the bearings, and so that I just have a universal hardware size. So I don't have to buy 440s and 256s. Thankfully with Steve and tie connector, the screws are the same, but the pivot barrels are just a different diameter. So that works out. But yeah, I would like to, especially because screws are so expensive. Like I don't always want to buy 100, 440s for $175. Like that's a lot of knives I don't make that many transients. So I'm like wanting to kind of transition. Also like simple things like even sizing 440s, like with the screw cutter, it's like 3 times as hard to push through that with the screw cutter. And then when you're doing fucking 100 of them, like my hands start to cramp up or they're sore, like little, weenie stuff like that. But, trying to avoid that where I can. And I also like the idea of a higher thread count, a higher pitch, like 56 threads per inch instead of 40, when you're only having like 80 thousandths of thread engagement. If you can get more threads in there, the better. So,
yeah,
and the last thing that I'm complaining about is because I still This is super like, I don't, yeah. Because I still hand tap all my backspacers because I don't have a tool slot for a thread mill or a tap in either machine because I'm tapped. I'm tapped on spots for taps.
Make one.
And I have my, yeah, I know. It doesn't take that long. It takes 10 minutes to, especially because I use a Tapmatic. And so, but I have the tension for the torque setting set for 256, and I don't want to change it to 440 because I broke so many taps, like dialing that in. Yeah. And like if the 440 tap is not perfectly sharp, it just, the torque, it just binds up, and I have to like inch it down and feel like I'm gonna break the tap on everything I do. Yeah, no, I need to free up a tool slot. I just like have everything programmed off of a certain, the 19 tools that I use. And I don't like want to go back in and reprogram everything just to accommodate like throwing a thread mill in there, even though I really should. It would save me a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, we were talking last week about some of that stuff, about just post-process stuff, like eliminating, even if it requires additional cycle time in the machine, to not have to do like a whole entire secondary process. Just figure it out. Like, I don't want to fucking tap stuff. I hate tapping shit by hand because I just break them. Always, especially 256, 440, all that shit. Like, I don't like doing it.
Dude, knock on wood, 256 form tap in the Tapmatic. The one that I have in there now, I have tapped like thousands of holes with it, and it like with zero issue at all. The biggest, hardest part is the backspacers are so small. So trying to hold them down with like 2 fingers against an anti-spin screw in my fixture plate, and then come down and thread it without having it lift up above what it's stopping it and then spin. Like, that's my biggest, like, I have it pretty dialed now, but like, it took quite a while to like get it there.
You gotta have a little hook on it so it goes under it and it can't lift. I've had so much shit lift and fucking chopper, helicopter
I just have
around.
Fingers of steel. I have the most jacked 2 fingers, like for downward pressing like backspacers on my fixture plate. So stupid, dude.
You just got the shape of the backspacer impressed in your fingers permanently.
Honestly, yeah, my fingers are like so calloused on the end. My fingers are so calloused from doing that stuff that I can literally take like a nail clipper and I can like cut the end of the skin off of my fingers because it's just like got like an 1/8 inch thick callus. It's freaking gross.
That's how my palms were right here from riding BMX. They're still fairly calloused right there from my wedding ring, but yeah, it's still. I would cut with nail clippers. It'd get so bad.
Yeah, dude, I remember that like same shit. Like my hands from riding bikes, like I still actually have a pretty gnarly calluses like underneath my first knuckle. Like all of them. I don't know why that is, honestly, but like, yeah, I remember my hand calluses being so thick. Like, I mean, I feel like they were like literally 1/8 of an inch thick. They're still not bad from lifting weights. Like my hands just from gripping barbells and dumbbells and stuff like are still pretty like callous, but yeah, nothing like when I was riding bikes 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I actually, where was I? So when I was in Montana, they actually had a skate park in Bozeman. And like actually like some trails, like pretty legit trails. And who was I with? We were with somebody that was riding. Anyway, somehow BMX came up, and then I actually didn't realize this, but like my buddy who like I was there to be his best man was like super into BMX, like right around the same time we were, like mid 2000s, like 2000 to 2010, which was like right around the time that I met him. He had just stopped riding. So like, shit, man, small world. Somehow I didn't know you were into BMX when you were a kid, even though that was like the only thing I cared about in high school and college.
Yep. Did you ride, Alex? Did you ever ride or skate?
No,
or
I never rode. I was a skateboarder. Never rode bikes.
You're out.
You're out.
Sorry.
So yeah, this is Alex's last episode.
We appreciate your endeavor and your efforts, but due to personal concerns and conflicts, you're no longer welcome on this podcast.
It was funny. I was going to make a joke, like I'm actually shutting down my company because I want to be a podcaster. So it was like the long con was for me to be a podcaster. Now that I'm in, I don't need to make knives anymore.
You almost made it, dude, until you, At least it wasn't rollerblades.
Oh no!
I got to be honest.
Skateboard's cool.
Fruit boots, come on now. I honestly, I saw somebody not long ago, like fruit booting and like killing it, like on a vert ramp or something. Like a video popped up, and I forgot like what that looked like.
It's pretty fucking gnarly though.
Dude, when you're sending it, dude, like the Asian brothers that used to kill it, I don't even remember their name, but like I remember they were like crazy brutal with it, and like they send themselves for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see? Do you still digest BMX content, Ken?
Yeah.
I still watch stuff like every day, but like I just happened to catch. did you see Ryan Williams did that backflip front bike flip?
Yeah.
Where like backflip tucks it and then catches it and like
yeah,
that dude is
He's like,
pushing
I tried
it,
this
dude.
1,000 times, whatever. This is
Exactly.
the best trick I'll ever do in my life.
On the dirt jump.
So he was actually on an air.
Yeah,
it was a ramp to to Resi, but like you're probably thinking of in the X Games over the summer. He did front flip, front bike flip. He did.
That's what
I don't remember what he did, but he killed it at actually X Games dirt for like this being the first year that it came back. Like dudes threw it down. One dude did a 1440. That David, I think Godzik did like 360 body varial. I don't know if you caught any of that. Like
I've probably seen clips, but yeah, I don't know all the names of the dudes that ride now. It's so wild. I mean, I still know all like the main guys, but a lot of these other dudes that are just they would be kind of like what the guys that used to ride Woodward nonstop, or like the guys from Greenville, where it's just like
sure park rats,
yeah, trick ferrets, whatever. But yeah, some of these guys that have like their own compounds on their houses or whatever, and all they do is just send it all day long.
Logan Martin and
it's video game shit at this point. Yeah. It's wild.
When you watch Logan Martin, like I don't know if I've ever seen that dude even slip a pedal. You know what I mean? And he's doing like everything's opposite, triple whip, opposite triple whip, double flare, downside whips, and just like stuff that's like, and it's just like automatic.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, but I guess that's what you got to do if you want to be in the Olympics. Hey, is this a BMX podcast or did I miss the memo? Or
it is now. Yeah, it was wild. When the very first Autodesk customer advisory board meeting that I went to at IMTS, I think it was like 2016. It seemed like almost every single one of us that was in there rode BMX.
Really?
Everybody was talking about BMX. Yeah, it was wild. And we all rode like around the same time. It's kind of wild how a lot of us have kind of followed that same pattern.
Mid-school, baby.
Yep.
But anyway, so
cool.
Alex is assembling knives today. You just finished your drop and I remember we were talking yesterday and you were purchasing materials and you got hardware on the way for the next run. And you said that you were looking at like 4 to 6 weeks, before the next drop. Hopefully, as you move forward and you start to kind of get things more dialed in, I'm assuming you're trying to have just no downtime between drops, right? Like you just want to kind of have a perpetual flow of knives coming out of the shop.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I mean, the mill's been off for like a week. Aside from, I had a little crash last week. I was doing some real tall parts in it. And we had talked about this, how I did a safe tool change. I wrote that alias to M6 and it moves the table away, does a tool change, comes back up, all just by calling M6. And then using that T16 within the alias program to do the actual tool change. So it doesn't just loop itself over and over. But anyways, I had the fixture in there. I ran all the Op1 parts towards the end of the day last week, and then the next morning I was going to flip them all and do the other side. They're like a 13-inch long piece that I have on top of this inside this big fixture in the mill. Anyways, power up the machine like normal, and I wasn't thinking about it. I was distracted a little bit, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to power up the machine, flip it. The program's already in there. I've already ran a bunch of these parts before, and I didn't turn off the tool change at power up. So that was that story that I posted last week. Like, make sure you set the shit to 0 if you're doing tall parts, if you have a Haas. Because the power up procedure, it'll send the spindle home, it'll send the table home, then it'll tool change to whatever number tool you have set in there. But if you have 0, it won't do a tool change. So it sends this fucking tall fixture with a part in it. The last part that I had, I just left it in there at the end of the day.
All the way to X negative travel.
It sends that whole fixture under the tool changer, and then it starts spinning the fucking carousel, and then the tool is just boop, 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 like it just kicked the longest, biggest tool that I had, and there was a 3/4 inch in mill. That's like, I think the gauge length is probably 6 inches or so, and it just hit the top of the whole fixture, kicked it sideways in the carousel, and drug it across. And I e-stopped it before the probe hit, because it would have hit the probe. That was the next tool that it would have hit. And thankfully I stopped it, and then ended up just pulling the fixture out. I took the part out, pulled the fixture out, and then I just yanked the tool out. And luckily it didn't do any damage to anything. The tool changer didn't get messed up. The pocket was fine. It chipped the tool a little bit, but for what that tool is doing, it's helixing a bore, a couple of 2.5 inches down.
The side of the flute.
Yeah, it only chipped like the inside of the bottom of it, inside the radius. And I'm really only using the corner radius to just helix a bore.
Nice.
So thankfully it didn't break that tool, didn't hit the probe, because the probe halo wouldn't have done shit anyways on that, because it wasn't triggered or wasn't on. So I pulled that out, and then I just finished the power up procedure, moved the table over, and then put it back in and ran the parts, and I was done. But that was the last thing that I've done in the mill, and that was last week. So yeah, mill's been off pretty much this whole time. So I've just been doing some hand fitting, finish work on some of these knives. The process on them is getting so fast now. Now that, I mean, even only doing 14 of them, one of them that I overcut quite a bit in the stop pin track. So the lock engages a little too far for me, and then it closes too far. So I measured it, and I need to put in a stop pin that's like 129. So I'll probably just either cut a gauge pin or make a gauge pin or something hard, and then ream those holes out. And then that one will be totally fine too. And I think that's probably going to end up being the auction one with the Ultim on it. So, nice. But yeah, sharpening and everything's really fast. I've been sharpening, roughing them on the 2x72 and then finishing them on the wicked edge just to put a nice crisp edge on there. And I'm getting them like fairly, they're not popping hair as fast as yours do, like as clean. And, like it's not like shaved, like one swipe and your arm's clean. But they're cutting hairs. So I think for me, it's pretty good for now until I get it like
sharp enough.
I don't have a strop. So I think that's part of my issue.
Damn, son. Level up your sharpening game. Fuck.
I know I suck.
Speaking of sharpening,
I use a block of wood.
That works out.
Yeah, I use a block of basswood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you guys are
basswood
both peasants.
compound.
What the fuck?
Well, basswood's cheap.
I will say, my Lamia. I'm gonna call it Lamia. Which one do you like? What do you use?
I call it Lamia, but it sounds more like, I don't know. Maybe it's Lamia. I don't know. I Googled it and it says both, so it doesn't matter really. It's Latin.
Okay.
It's dead language. Well, call it whatever we want.
We'll call it Lamia. Anyways, I've been very surprised by how sharp my Lamia has stayed, and I have cut a lot with it. Like a lot. And it is perpetually sharp. It's very nice. But
I haven't sharpened mine at all.
No, I don't have any.
I use it all the time.
No need at all. No chinks in the edge, no nothing. And I beat the fuck out of it. I broke down so much cardboard at that wedding with that knife. Like a shitload of cardboard. And like, it's still in great shape at the edge. But I saw you got your, you ordered, who makes that, the sharpening thing that you were looking at for your 2x72 that you ordered?
Oh, yeah. It's a Ameribraid.
That's right. And have you gotten that set up and used it, or you just like opened it up and looked at it?
I just opened it and looked at it, but just because I'm grinding in lock faces and stuff, so I probably should get another 2x72. Anyway, yeah, I think it's going to work out fairly well. I just got to rewire my VFD to go backwards.
The hard part with that is the tracking situation. You know what I mean? Usually the tracking goes haywire. But I think actually I was using an Ameribraid grinder when I was in Indiana. And I think they have something on them that like actually makes the tracking in reverse actually work. So like I can't remember what it was, but I think there's like an additional adjustment that like doesn't just move the wheel, but it moves the whole arm, and like it gives you the ability to track it in reverse.
Yeah, the wheel like moves.
Right,
but
this is
like he's inside
different.
of his microphone now.
Yeah, it's so close to his face.
You sound like you're inside of it now. It's a little close.
Yeah, I don't know. Does it? Oh. Gross. Well, sweet. Yeah, that was cool. The only issues I saw with that, I've gotten used to sharpening with a similar setup, but from over top, with the AMK that you have also. And I'm wondering, like, if I used that on the 2x72, like, would I have to sit down so that I was like looking up at the edge, or like, I'm wondering, what the best way to run that is with the belt being in a vertical position when you're using it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be curious to see, how you're able to see the burr form. And
I need to watch some videos on how they use theirs, because they probably have their platen either tipped way back and maybe using the slack up right under the tensioner, the tension tracking wheel. They use
like a rotary platen, and it has like a rubber backing or whatever.
Oh yeah, they're using it in the small section of that, huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit of
between. It's close to the wheels. Yeah, there's two wheels really close together.
So the way I have it set up now is like the belt comes down and it goes through a rubber wheel, and then it comes over a metal wheel so I can grind the lock faces. I'm just going to take off the belt off of the rubber wheel that's holding it down. So there's like slack. And then I'm just going to do it on that. And it's going to be more of a convex edge.
I'll say you have like a convex edge instead of like a true flat edge. Now, do you have any concern with if you're doing your edges that way, like resharpenability for your people. I guess your edge thickness is so thin that if it's slightly concave or convex, like it's really not going to make any difference when they're using like a Lansky or whatever. It's like the secondary bevel's so small that like whatever they do is just going to make it whatever it needs to be.
And actually put the bevel at like a higher degree, so it's like more of a 20 degree per side. I could see that happening with like a 15 degree per side, maybe, like not being able to match it with like a KME or something like that.
Shit, who does 15 degrees? That's crazy. I used to do 17, but even on like a 10 or 12 thousandths behind the edge thickness, it makes your secondary bevel look a little bit tall. And I live in that 20 degrees is what I find best. If it's something that's a little thicker, like bigger, I have used 25 in the past. Just to keep the secondary bevel, a little bit smaller, but that's very rare that I have anything that's that thick that demands that. But if somebody like brings over an existing knife that's already like thick behind the edge, I will adjust it to 25, but I've never gone back to a higher than that. I feel like that's like a log splitting angle. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Mine are at 25 right now, but the edge is thick.
But you have a thicker edge though.
Yeah, I got a 20 thou thick edge, which I'm gonna hopefully, if we end up doing the Boise grind, I'll try and tick it down to like around 8 or 10 and then change the angle of the secondary. Yeah, the sharpening edge on here is really small, so I think even if you have some convex on here, it's not going to be noticeable, or you'll be able to sharpen past it easily anyways.
Did you decide if you were going to do the Boise style grind or if you were going to do your iteration with like a true hollow?
So I'm going to do this next batch just like how I did these first ones. I'm going to hard mill them and leave them flat, and then I think that'll buy me some time. And then also get some funds once those sell to do some of this other experimental stuff. But that's going to be, it's going to end up being pretty hollow. I haven't measured how much hollow, but with the blade kicked up at 45 degrees and then using a 6-inch wheel, there's a very noticeable hollow in it. So when you do them flat, like a lot of guys seem to be doing, when you do them flat like this and you just cup wheel across flat, then it's flat here. And then there's a little bit of hollow at the tip where it has to tip down. Where it has to dip down, or the wheel does. But overall, it's essentially flat. And did you watch any of the last episode at all?
Nope.
Yeah, we went into that stuff like pretty detailed. Most of like the second half of the episode was really just like screen sharing and Fusion, going through that stuff. Because Alex is thinking about doing them flat, laying them fairly flat, and then small cup wheel across. So it's essentially a flat grind, but with a cup wheel. And then the way that I was thinking is kicking them with the blades down at 45 degrees, you end up getting quite a bit of hollow on there. So I don't know what the actual radius is. I need to actually calculate that or just draw it and see what it is. But it's a noticeable hollow in there.
And I think larger the wheel, less of a hollow too, right?
Yeah. And then it depends on how much you kick it also.
Yeah. And
so the shallower it is, the bigger the radius is and the steeper it is. If you stick it vertically and you take a 6-inch wheel in there, you got a 3-inch radius. Obviously, but as you tip it away from vertical, it starts getting a larger. It's not an actual exact radius because of the cross section of the wheel at the angle, but you're essentially mimicking like a very large diameter wheel.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious. Like, so is that something where you can model it how you want, but because you're following like a trace or a trajectory line with that, it kind of just is what it is? Like you really can't even model it because it's almost ever changing. You know what I mean? To create that feature is almost impossible in CAD. Whereas,
Yeah. So I created all of it in Fusion. I can open it up real quick if you want to see it. Yeah. I mean,
you don't necessarily have to just because I know you guys went over it last week, but I just get curious.
It's all good. I got it right here anyways. I modeled the whole thing. So I created a sketch of the wheel and then I created, let me see here if I can just share this. It should open up. And then, I'll just go for it real quick, just so you can see it. So this is just kind of a mock-up. I mean, it's actually a good to go fixture, but I made it this specific shape so it'd be real easy to machine. Kick it down, lay it just rectangle plate, and then profile this whole thing with an end mill, 3/4 inch end mill. But I've got some flat on here so that I can just quickly stick that on the bottom bed of the vise. Indicate this, it should be close enough, indicate this, and then mill this face feature in here. I've got some bosses here
Just for locating.
Anyways, just for some locating. And then it's holding the pivot screws. And then there's another 1/4 inch shoulder, ultra precision shoulder here to basically as a tertiary. But I think it might over constrain a little bit. I think if these are just loose, just enough to keep it so the blades don't fly out. Yep. If the grinding,
even if they're cleared by 1,000ths or something like that, just to get them pretty close.
Exactly. So in the design stuff, I basically just brought this blade in. I have my original body in here too, which this is the original blade, the one you can see kind of turning on and off. So the difference in it is not that noticeable. There's a little bit in the plunge here, and then there's a little bit up here towards the tip. But all of this is inside the frames when it's closed, so it doesn't really matter too much to me. But essentially what I did was I created a cup wheel sketch, and I created basically this edge path that was a plane it was an offset plane from normal to the face of the blade. And then I offset it to the pre-sharpened edge thickness. So I could create a sketch that was basically just a projection of this.
So you're driving it off the center point of the wheel, offsetting it enough so that the edge of the wheel is engaging it to where the edge thickness would be.
Yep. And then, so I have another sketch on the side here. That's a sketch of the plunge for the sweep of the plunge. And then I have just a 1/4 of the wheel. So this is a 3-inch radius, so 6-inch wheel. And then I swept this sketch here along the edge and then along those two sketches. Yep. Okay. So that actually right here, if you go into this, you can see.
So you just sketched it. Did you have to merge the two sketches as one?
As long as they're touching, you can chain them together.
Interesting. See, I can't do that in Creo. That makes sense that you can chain them though. You can have two separate sketches, and if they're touching, it'll just use them both. That's cool.
And ideally being tangent. But yeah, it was a flat sketch.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have
because I needed it to rotate. I could have done a 3D sketch in here, but this is easy enough. And then I created this, 1/4 of the wheel, and I did a 1/4 so that I have a point for the center of the wheel. So this line here is actually the center of the wheel. Yeah. So I created this body right here. So that's actually just a sweep or a sweep. It's a parallel sweep of this, along those two sketches. So that created this body. And then what I did in the cam workspace was I just basically I created just a cup wheel, whatever. I just use a face mill. And then what I did was I drove it off of that body. Let me figure out how to use Fusion again. I always forget.
It's your first time.
Yep. So then for the actual geometry selection, I selected this edge right here. So it's driving off of because center point traces are off the center of the wheel. You can offset it left to right, but that would have offset it, maybe left, right this way or left that way or something. And then it's just a trace tool path off that. So if I hide this, where did everything go?
Now, are you worried about support on the second side for grinding or
a little bit? The guys that I've talked to have said, because I can't use a tab on here because it's in the way for the wheel. If we just simulate this, you can see kind of what's going on real quick. I mean, it's obvious, but quick recap on it. So this is just programmed as a single tool path or a single pass on it. Some guys are saying that they take 2 passes. Like the first pass is like 2 inches a minute at like 2,000 RPM, 18 to 2,000 RPM. And then a second pass at like a 1/2 inch a minute, same RPM. So it clips the screw a little bit. That's why it gets red. It's touching the screw a little bit right there, but
so that's that. But this doesn't hit the removal feature. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. So you can see there's definitely some hollow here. And this whole thing was, it was modeled entirely, and it's all parametric. So I can change the wheel diameter. And the way that I created that sketch was I created an offset plane from flat, from normal to XY plane, like G17 essentially.
Yep.
And I made that plane coincident with a point that was on the original blade, which ended up being like right about here. So as I changed the angle of the blade, that sketch stays flat, but the blade moves around with it. Nice. The blade moves, but the sketch stays flat. And then what I did was I took an intersection on that plane. I took an intersection of my original blade, which gave me a point on the blade, roughly around here, which was just a flat intersection. So then I created a 6-inch or a 3-inch radius. and I made the radius coincident to this point and the intersection point over here where the intersection was on the original blade. And that allowed it to follow this existing height, the existing top part of the primary and the pre-sharpened edge thickness. And so it swept along that stuff very easily, actually. Once I figured out, I mean, we kind of went back and forth a little bit, kind of trying to figure out how I was going to do it. I ended up doing it a couple times, and then this way seemed to be really good. And then as you adjust the sketches, like you can change the side sketch for the plunge, and it changes how this plunge looks aesthetically. But I think it's pretty close to, the original datum. I mean, you can see it's not that much different. So between
like
those
a boss,
two,
dude, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So it worked out really good. And then, I mean, there's an obvious hollow here. So, I mean, I guess I could check and see what that is.
I wouldn't consider that a Boise grind, dude. That's a ZE grind right there. It has an actual functional, aesthetically pleasing plunge.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. Yeah, a lot of them look pretty good.
That's like my only gripe with all that stuff is...
Yeah, some of them are very noticeable that they're using a cup wheel. Most of the ones that are laying flat, because you can see that radius on it. Koenig does a really good job and sweeps off. It looks like, I haven't seen how he does his. When I talked to him at the Makers, he said he was totally down to share with some information with me, but I haven't hit him up about that too much. We've been talking more kind of brother stuff lately. But I wanted it to look kind of sweeping. I still need to put this blade into an assembly and see how it looks. And then because of this, and because it's a hollow now, I do actually need to change the inside of the frames where it closes up. Because now, instead of it just being kind of a triangle, it's actually going to be more of like a
3D surface radius now to create.
Yeah, I have to create that surface in there, which is just this. It's just these three surfaces that are offset by 10 thou, and then I subtracted from the frame. So
easy peasy.
It's not too bad. It's pretty easy. So.
Sick. Anyways, well, thanks for catching me up. Now that I missed it last week, I'm glad to be in the loop. But yeah, I mean, that sounds fitting. I think it'll be a great direction to go. Alex, did you decide, if you were when you were thinking about going in that direction yourself? I know that was an idea, but when do you think you'll integrate that?
It might be next year, just because the fact that I'm getting these are coming out pretty dialed. Like, I'm pretty happy with the way they're coming out. And the machining now, I think we were talking about it in text, is like, I now integrated cutting the tab off the top part. So all of that's going to be wrapped into one operation. So engrave, do the bevel, and then cut the tab when it gets flipped for the second bevel. And then once they come off, I'm just going to tumble them and then kind of grind the rest of that tab off a little bit, clean it up, and then tumble it one more time to give it a little blend or whatever. And then it's good to go. But I think next year, as far as the grinding, I think that's when I'm going to hit it. But I'm going to try to work with Ken this year and try to get things in the works, and then kind of get him going on it, because he's probably going to be the guinea pig.
Even though mine's way more complex, I feel like, than yours, because it's on this big ass angle.
Yeah. Just, you always got to do the harder thing first, I feel like.
Yeah.
I cut my teeth on that at work, which was always pick the hardest thing. If you do the hardest thing first, then once you get through that, then everything's downhill, versus constantly climbing uphill. It just makes every task seem more arduous than the last, rather than getting that relief of things that are easier.
Right.
Yeah, Alex's it's a pretty small fixture, pretty straightforward. I mean, if you had a wheel, I mean, it sucks because we don't have the same spindle, so it's not like you can just buy the wheel and the tool holder and everything and send it, and I can turnkey everything for you. Which I'm totally down to do if anybody is listening and they want to do that stuff. If you want to have some stuff turnkeyed, I'm totally down.
But you could turnkey a Cat 40 and a BT 30, Yeah,
we could totally do that. I mean, because it's going to be the same wheel with an 1 1/4 bore on it. So both of our face mill holders are going to have to be the same kind of modification anyways. Or like a similar
You're going to give you're giving everybody the keys to the kingdom, bro?
Yeah, not entirely. I guess I'll pick and choose, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, I get it. No, that's cool. I like that. I think that's a good timeline for integration. And I think one thing people don't realize is that once you have a process dialed in for how you're doing it, like taking the time to completely reinvent the wheel, like you can't just stop what you're doing entirely most of the time. You know, like you have to continue to do what you're doing while finding a way to do what you want to do. And like that process takes time. Like the idea of it taking you 3 or 4 months to like between getting your work holding, developing fixturing, getting all your components, programming everything, and then finding the right time to do it, like that would almost take like a fiscal quarter. You know what I mean? Unless you were just like, I'm hitting pause on everything until this new thing, you know, like that was one person that I saw doing that, which I have not really talked to him, but based on like some of the information that he shared and the things that he said, Triaxis, he spent so much fucking time developing like his bevel machining strategy. It felt like every day all I saw was like his 20 millionth like revision that he was trying. And like, you know, like not a lot of people have the luxury of just being able to like hit pause on their entire business just to like focus on like this one thing. You know? And like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it cut out a little bit. My internet's super shitty in the garage. I thought that for a long time that he only made a few knives, like less than 10 knives, it seemed like. Because I think he had like number 9 up on the website or something not that long ago. But when I talked to him at Makers, he's like, no, I've done about 100 knives. So I think what's going on, and I could be wrong, but I think what's going on is that he's just trying something on each blade that he has to make for an order anyways. So it's not like he's just throwing blades away trying this shit.
Okay.
Yeah, for a long time, like
I
every day, every story was
junk.
like, I don't know. Yeah. But it seemed like every day was like, oh yeah, I'm trying this shit out. And then I'm trying this out, trying that out. And it was like, it seemed like it was a lot of just like development time. I think all of those blades are good blades. He's just trying to make his process a lot more efficient.
Gotcha.
But they end up being good blades that he's putting in knives and selling. So
cool.
Yeah. I don't have a ton of time to be trying. I don't have the time really or the cash to be trying something new on every single blade. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
that's where I landed. Like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've had, been thinking about this damn knife since like 2017. So I had plenty of time to think about it.
Yeah.
Were you saying you
landed though?
oh yeah. So yeah, like when I first started, dialing in all these things and then figured out like, all right, this works. Let's just run with this for a while. That's what I basically did until I was like, all right, do I have time to make this better? Yes, I do. Okay, let's do this. So like a lot of my fixturing went to like the way it's indicated now from, just being on just like I would do it a stupid way. I would just bolt down a plate and not indicate it at all. And then I would just
no way to put it back in.
So yeah, so what I would do is like I would take it off and put it back on, and then I would re-indicate everything every time I wanted to do an op 1 or an op 2.
Jeez, dude, that sounds brutal.
Oh yeah, so it sucked for a while. So yeah, I was like, I just got to make this better and better and better, and that's what I've been doing is like doing that. So now, if I do go this, cup wheel route, Boise ground route, whatever, I'll have to do that again. Is like integrate new fixturing, and not that that's a difficult thing for me to do at this point, but like it just, like you said, takes time.
Yeah, I think the easiest way would be to pull those vices off, throw them in the trash, and then put a Lang base on there, and then make your fixture big enough with 96 mil pull studs on the bottom, and then you don't have to indicate anything.
Well, don't throw it in. You just drive them 3 hours down here to my shelf, and I'll hold on to them for you until you.
There you go. There you go.
So yeah, I actually looked into all of that, and it's pretty affordable. Like it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It's not too bad.
It's all like relative, right? Like affordable, but like it's like 2 weeks worth of work pays for everything, So
exactly.
It makes your life better. Yeah, it's like hard to choke down spending like $5,000 to $10,000 on work holding, but like if it pays dividends quickly, like it's a no brainer, right?
Yeah, and I think with the ease of like assembling and like taking fixtures on and off, and the fact that I won't have to move them, it's like huge. And the fact that you could, like, if you used a 5th axis setup, you could just put the vise right on there and like, okay, now I can machine this fixture really quick and then pop this off and then boom, it goes on.
Having everything be universal would be sick. Like right now I'm obviously running dual stations on a subplate, and then I'm running a mini pallet system. But if I could have those all be interchangeable, you know, kind of use what I wanted when I wanted, like, I think that would be the ultimate in, I don't even know what the word would be, but yeah, that would be the optimal workflow. So I haven't looked at Lang stuff too much. I know a lot of people are using it, but I really am not familiar with like what their offerings are or like, you know, what the cost of it looks like, but it seems like that's the direction everybody's going. So I have to assume it's solid.
Yeah. If you've seen Fifth Axis's lineup, basically just Lang is kind of the original of all that. I feel like it, at least that's what it seems. They basically just copy everything.
Is it cheaper
it's
than
not
Fifth
much
Axis?
different. No, it's not much different.
Okay.
It seems like kind of the MO at Fifth Axis is just copy everything Lang's doing. But so
what can you
Lang
do?
stuff's really nice.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at it. I mean, I don't know where I want to go exactly, but as I move into higher density transient production, you know, because that's really what my push is for 2024. I definitely want to explore how to optimize that to the highest. I'm going to, just based on my current workflow and like, you know, what I want to take on with the transient stuff, I really need to be able to be doing longer overnight or like lights out style manufacturing on the transient stuff. That's really the only thing that I want to allocate that kind of component density for, just because everything else is still pretty small batch. But I have literally given like zero thought to how I would approach that. And I really need to, because I'm sure for the first few months, I'm just going to have to do what I've been doing and just have a lot more hands-on time out here, unfortunately. But I definitely want to get to the place where I'm able to be doing like, you know, 8 to 10 sets of any component, you know, per cycle. It's just a matter of figuring out how I want to do that. So I'm sure I'll be knocking on your guys' doors for your thoughts just to see how I can optimize.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that helped me out is like the whole, because like I come from like a mapping background. Like I used to make maps, like digital maps and stuff. And the whole work coordinate system thing like makes sense to me. So as long as literally everything in your model is like the same as you machined it, it's like pretty easy to then figure out like, where do you want this work offset and what do you want to run in it? But the big thing is like repeatability of like the fixturing is what I found is super helpful.
I think what I'm going to do is like, I'm just going to get, cause I left room on both tables where I can, even though I have the mini pallet base, I can use like instead of just using the 6x10s, I can use the 10x14s or whatever they are. Yeah. So I can put a bigger pallets on those bases. The thing that I'm trying to consider is like, do I want to have every single set that I'm cutting based off of a common central work coordinate system where they're all like G59? Or do I want to have each set be its own work coordinate system so that I can run them independently? You know what I mean? Like if I don't want to run all 10, if I just want to run one at a time, but I have everything programmed in pattern as the same 0, I guess technically I could just select the sequences from within the patterns and only use, you know, like make sets of sequences that just use like, you know, 1 for each location, still have them based off the same central 0. It's just a lot of like, when I get into that, then I get nervous because you're clicking so many things and it's like, did I click the right sequence in the pattern? You know, and then I have to go through and make sure each section's like labeled appropriately. Yeah, it's just a lot of like room for error. You know, maybe if I do that
roughing.
I do that with my blades. Like my blades are all set up that way. So like I'll have one central work coordinate system and then I'll select the pattern of how, like if I want to do 1 through 3 or whatever, I'll select those and then send it to the machine and then it'll machine those. Or if I want to do all 8 of them, then I can just run all 8 of them.
Yeah, no, I think I'll do that. It'll just like, then that comes down to like for pattern. I don't know how patterning is in Fusion, but like in Creo, it's very like dimensional, related, like rotating along axes or, you know, mirroring across an axis or just like a straight up do this 3 inches over type of thing, you know? And so as long as I'm building, as long as I have the design intent of like making it easy on myself where all the spacing and everything for the fixture is like nominal numbers, you know what I mean? So it's like just all very, you know, intuitive, or I'm not doing, okay, shit, I got to go measure this plane or this hole and like get this, you know, I want it to be very, very easy to translate. So yeah, I think that'll be my next move. Now that we're talking about it, I think that'll be the easiest way. I pretty much just want to import exactly what I'm doing, just be able to do higher quantities. Like I think that if I could even just do 6 sets of handles at a time, that's the other thing I got to figure out, like, is for my op 1 stuff, because I do all of my op 1s in soft jaws. And so, like, I still have to do that one at a time. Now, that cycle time isn't that long, like maybe 30 minutes or 35 minutes for op 1, depending on like how big the parts are. But yeah, if I could do that during the day and then just run op 2s at like an hour and 20 to an hour and 30 minutes a handle set, fuck, if I had 6 of them in the machine, I could run for 10 hours, So like, that's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, that's something to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a main reason why I went with rectangle stock rather than getting a water jet. Obviously, there's cost savings too, having them just square versus patterns. I ordered all the material for my frames from TMS, so I just gave them just a rectangle size, which is what I used before, but I saw cut them all on the bandsaw. Mm-hmm. But I hit them up. I'm like, hey, I need 60 of these, and I need 6 of each of these. Lock inserts out of one big piece, pattern 8 in there, and then pocket clips, one big piece, and pattern 8 in there for all op 1 stuff. But it makes it very easy to put on a pallet with talons and pipple clamps. So it makes it a lot easier if you have to profile and you have to go all the way around stuff, depending on how your geometry is. Like, I'm doing all the internal stuff first. So because the datums have big chamfers on them, I have a bunch of room that's clearance that I can have talons and pipples and stuff under that. Mm-hmm. And then on the second side, it surfaces all that area off. So with the 20, I have basically 3 sections of 10-inch wide by 20-inch in Y on the machine. So if I have like a 10-inch wide by 20-inch section right there, I can fit 30. I can easily fit about 30 frames in that 10-inch wide section. So 15 sets of frames right there, and that'll be over a day of runtime. Just to do basically that pattern right there, because it'd be 30, it's an hour. It's like an hour per side. So
how are you supporting it underneath?
So that was the thing. That's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. If I do like a pallet that's going to fit on top of the vise, because I want to go with Pearson stuff, but I don't want to pull my vices out. I don't want to pull the vices out and then put that in there. I also don't want to put a Pearson pallet system in the vise and then pallets on top and all that shit. So I'm thinking about, I have a really big fixture that I made that takes up 2/3 of the table, that I could easily put some fixtures that either bolt down or do some 96 mil pattern stuff on it if I put bases on it. I've been thinking about that stuff a lot this week. I think also just doing some fairly thick fixture plates, whether like 1.5 inches or 2 inch thick or whatever, because this stuff is going to hopefully just be dedicated and never be used for anything else, and hopefully it's not going to wear out, if we put inserts in it and whatever. That if it's thick enough, I can just cut some shelves on the bottom and then I can just grab it with the vise. Yeah. So just open up the vise all the way and then maybe make a set of dedicated jaws that are the same height, that I don't have to skim every single time. And I don't want to I don't want to put parallels in the bottom. So if I make a dedicated set of jaws or use like snap jaws or something that's nice and ground and they're even, I could just put a fixture right on top of the vise and then have fucking mosquitoes everywhere.
I swear to God, I thought Alex was just like sipping on Diamond Tap or something like that. Just like, it was kombucha or something. You fucking, yeah. I knew it. Kombucha. You fucking, why is it that all kombucha comes in like that, like fucking brown bottle fluid? Like, looks like hydrogen comes peroxide or some shit.
Like a medicine bottle with a rainbow on it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, that makes sense. Dude, I wish I don't have in either machine, I don't have just like a normal vise with like hardened steel jaws. Mm-hmm. Like and I don't know that Orange makes just like, a hardened steel jaw set that doesn't have like talons or anything on it, or like Sarah jaws or anything. They do?
Yeah, they do.
I probably should buy some of those because, like, I don't know, jaw lift is still a problem with these. Like, I still am dealing with that. But I haven't really, I guess I really never looked into that if they had hard steel jaws that would act as just like a normal vise for these things.
Yeah, they're the same. Well, you're talking about for the Deltas.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Deltas, no, they don't.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Not for the
Deltas.
I
like have a set.
I was thinking of the.
I have a set that
ones.
I machine like steel jaws, but they're not hardened, and they're like I can grip shit, but like I don't have any faith in what they're gripping as being like flat. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. Plus they lift.
They'd lift, yes.
Yeah, they'll pop off.
So I gotta figure out another workaround for that for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking for some reason the big ones, because you can get those, or you can get MMM has a nice set, but I think those are gripper jaws.
Yeah, they're gripper. That's what
they're
I
all
have
the same bolt
piranhas.
pattern. Yeah. Same bolt pattern. But yeah, I can just stick some hardened, just the stock jaws in here, and then just drop a fixture in there. So that's kind of what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to probably lay that stuff out over the next couple days because I'm still waiting for everything. I ordered everything but the blade steel yesterday or Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because it's like I'm ordering from a few different suppliers. Like I created a really clean bill of materials in Google Sheets with links and all the stuff in here. And then it's got inventory on it. And I'm going to try and add a bunch of functionality on here. So it's like, put in how many knives do I want to make out of this batch? And then it'll go through the whole thing and figure out, do you have enough parts in stock? Yes, it's green. If no, it's red, whatever. And you need to order it. It'll change the status of all that stuff. And then just so I'm not going through boxes and counting and all that shit every single time.
Dude, I'm such a simp when it comes to that. And I wish I was better with Google Sheets because I need to do that desperately. But I got to be honest, like I have no idea how. You know what I mean? Like everything I do is handwritten. I have so many handwritten things. Like, yeah, it'd blow your mind how much handwritten shit I have.
Do you use Sheets, Alex? Google Sheets at all?
I use it all the time. I use it to send POs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I built a whole system in here when I was doing a bunch of job shop stuff that it was basically a job board. It was a full like production dashboard. I had all the customer information. I had it would automatically populate job numbers if there was a purchase order put in there, like a PO number from a customer, when I got the job, when it was due, how many days remaining of duration, all that. It would show the status of if the order was paid or not. And it's actually pretty nice. But now that I'm not doing a bunch of job shop stuff, it's like I haven't really been using it much aside from slide stuff. But yeah, sometime maybe we should all just jump on Sheets and kind of go over what I've got going on, because I'm sure between the three of us, we can really improve it.
If you would be willing to do that, I would love that, because
dude,
as I
for sure.
start to add more and more shit to the docket, like having that on hand and like easily access from my phone or wherever I was, just like to give me peace of mind when I'm making decisions, would be awesome. So
yeah, it would be super easy. Like I'm real comfortable in Google Sheets. So I think going through this and having like additional sets of eyes looking at it, like, hey, what about this? Because we're all working on basically the same shit. You know, we all got a blade, we got two frames, we got whatever. You know, so the format of everything would be very similar for all of us, or just knife makers in general. So it'd be kind of cool.
Some of us don't have backspacers though, so I guess you're out.
I know, that's true. Damn it! But I got two pivots.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So there you go.
Yeah, you do have shit. We don't have two pivots. I guess we're out. But yeah, so that sounds like you got a good flow this week. You got all your material on order and coming in. Alex is assembling for the rest of eternity his 65 knives. When's your drop on those? Or is that a pre-order?
That was a pre-order.
Well,
but you did it already. That was last week, yeah. So yeah, you already got your money.
13th.
Wait, you did the pre-order like 5 days ago and you're already in the assembly phase?
Yeah, I'm almost done.
You didn't hear Alex gets all his shit from Best Tech, dude.
Oh,
yeah, man. Just unpacking them.
Yeah. I'm assembling. Dude. I'm assembling.
They're all assembled in the USA.
No, Alex, your pre-order shit is essentially, you're getting a pre-order right now for like 3 runs ahead kind of thing, right?
Yeah, like all my stuff is like essentially done before I even do the pre-order. Like it's pretty much done. I just got to assemble it.
Pretty much just doing the pre-order for like the sake of like knowing where it's going when it's done in like a week, right? You're just like, they're all done now. How am I going to sell them? I'm just going to do a pre-order for the ones that are done instead of just selling them when they're finished. It's like, no, I'm going to sell them just a little bit ahead of time so that I have time to like, one, take some cash and move it forward to the next batch. You know, you're staying on top of it. And 2, not going through the chaos of like, okay, now they're done and now I got to sell them and then I got to ship them really quick because now people know they're done and I got to finish them. That makes sense. Well, so you're going to be assembling and shipping, and then when you'll do your next pre-order, like in November, or like, you know, what is your time frame for release look like?
Yeah, probably November. I have material in Waterjet and Double Disc right now. They said 3 weeks. They're kind of getting, this is kind of like they're not slow time for them. Like they're pretty busy during this time. So I expected 3 weeks. And then I'm going to take more material and send it to them next week as well. So I'll have 2 runs essentially in the queue. And then once frames get back, I'll start machining those. But I got blades like ready to go to heat treat, and then I can hard mill those. So
nice. Sounds like you got the rest of your year pretty lined up. You're assembling this week. Ken's stuff's on order. I am both machines are running on Mac stuff right now because I just ordered all of the stuff because I'm a procrastinator. I just ordered all the titanium and the steel and the carbon fiber and hardware for my CCKS stuff, as well as like the first, I think I ordered enough stuff for like 30 more transients also, which I'm trying to release. The goal is to start releasing transients. You heard it here first, like 5 to 8 transients a week per month. Starting on December 1st is when I'm trying to.
Is it me? Is it you?
Are you seeing Alex's face pause now? He's gone.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone. He's out.
Did you see his face? It was so ridiculous.
Yeah, the internet cut out a little bit probably.
Anyways, so yeah, that's my goal is 5 to 8 transients a week starting December 1st. So I have the material for like the first month inbound. I'm going to spend the rest of November after CCKS machining those parts so that I can try and stay like 1 month ahead of all the components. And I want 2024 for most of 2024 to be able to. Yeah, we missed you.
There he is.
But yeah, I want for at least the first half of 2024, I want to be releasing, like 25 to 35 transients a month is my goal, while still doing the Mac stuff. And then when the Mac stuff wraps up, then be able to start to escalate that to be able to do the 2.9s and the 3.2s. Like I want kind of have plans for that. But yeah, that's my goal going forward this week. I have to finish up the Mac stuff in the next 12 days for November 1st delivery. And I'm kind of going to try and, based on my last 2 shows, even if I didn't start the CCKS knives until November 1st, like in 10 days, I should be able to machine everything. But I'd like to, before then, get the blades machined and into heat treat, get that stuff out of the way so that like it's just, nothing I'm waiting for. Everything can just be done without any delay once that stuff is back. So I'm going to try and push to get all the Mac stuff done in both machines, just because I pretty much gave up 8 days for being out of town. I'm not as on top of it this month as I would have liked to have been. So I kind of am just going to allocate both machines time to knocking that stuff out for the next like 10 or 12 days, move into the CCKS stuff. And then after CCKS is over, obviously I have to get back on the next batch of Mac stuff, but I'm going to talk. A lot of those guys are going to be at CCKS, and a lot of those guys, I got to be honest, are like behind on like the Mac stuff in general that they have. Like they're not like caught up. And so everything I'm making is like, they're buying it from me because they agreed to, but they don't need it type of thing. And so I'm going to talk to them and say, hey, like, would a reprieve help you? Because if we could take a couple of months off, from doing Mac stuff and allow me to just focus on my own stuff, like if that helps you to get caught up and it gives me a chance to get my own stuff off the ground, like maybe we can both win. I don't want the projects to go cold, but at the same time, all I can do is make stuff. If these guys aren't finishing what they have, then like that's on them. You know what I mean? And I that's one of the reasons why I'm transitioning to doing my own work, is just because like the headaches that go along with working with other people, despite like the fact that they're good friends, like we're still learning this business model together. And we're like getting into like that heavy show time of year, between CCKS, and then you have New York Custom Knife Show, you have Kentucky, you have TKI, you have California in February. We're getting to that point where guys are running and honestly, it's actually getting to the point now where it seems like shows are just year round. It used to be that there was a lull from like after TKI until like Blade. Like there was like a 3 or 4 month window where like there weren't really shows. Well, now you have Blade Texas, you have the New Orleans Custom Knife Show. I don't keep track of all of them, but there are certainly shows all year round. So I think we're having to manage our expectations, and like, I don't want to feel like I'm inundating these guys with work. I don't want to feel like, they're paying me for stuff when they still have like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of stuff sitting on the bench that I've already made them, and I just feel like we need to kind of like reevaluate. Or you get guys like American, he's completely up to date, but like he crushes them out in like 3 days. And then he gets burnt out on it. You know what I mean? Like he's capable of it, but like, I'm sure he doesn't want to be doing that, so I'm kind of like going through that transition period where I have to have these conversations with these guys too, and understand their expectations of the projects. And we kind of have to like revisit exactly what we want to do. But I guess transition's always going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass, no matter what it is. And I just have to kind of accept that and like stay focused on what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, are you still there? Or are you gone completely?
For sure. I'm here.
We lost. Oh, you are there. We just can't see you.
I'm still here. I'm here.
Can you see him, Alex?
I can't see him, but I know he's there. I can sense that he's there.
I can hear his nose whistle.
I'm here. It's recording on my end, so I think
real ones know. Anyways, well, cool. I guess that's where we're all at. We kind of just laid our time out. This was more of like I feel like a
cut off,
get caught up with each other episode. I haven't seen your smiling faces in a couple of weeks.
Just keep going.
I'm sure we'll have more to share next week.
Don't worry about me.
I'm kind of getting to the point now, guys. I think let's talk about going forward. I think we can probably start to have a little bit more direction to our episodes. We can maybe, rather than just having it be a BS fest, we can kind of start to plan ahead of time. Like maybe some topics that we want to talk about. And get a little bit more direct with our intent with these episodes now that we've done 12. I mean, I honestly, this first 3 months has flown by. I didn't expect to have these episodes come out as cleanly and concisely and consistently as they have been. But I think that now that we're here and we're pretty warmed up, I think that we can probably start putting a little bit more effort into thinking about
the episode that we actually do some editing on. Cut this whole section of
absolutely
shit out.
And more so like getting into the more of the meat and potatoes of it, because I get a lot of questions, like even when I show like, stories of the machine and people are like, oh, what is that white milk coming out of the thing? And I'm just like, okay, well, yeah, obviously people don't know what coolant is. So, things like that, coolant, end mills, how to not design a zero rad corner in a pocket.
An inside sharp corner, like, oh, don't you have that square corner cutting end mill? You don't have one of those?
yeah, exactly. Like stuff like that, and like, because I get a lot of people too ask me like, well, why'd you do this way? And it was just like, there's reasons, but also there's not reasons sometimes, but mostly reasons.
Yeah,
I think stuff like that.
I think we definitely could bring back the old Q&A. We did that at the beginning when the podcast was getting off the ground, and like. We had some response, but probably not as much as you might have expected, just given the fact that we have 50, 60,000 followers between us. But I think now that people are getting like warmed up to like what the podcast is, that like if we re-promote like the Q&A side of things, taking like 15 to 20 minutes an episode to respond in that fashion to keep those guys engaged, like I'd definitely be down for that. We can do, machining basics, fixturing concepts, whatever we have the episode to be. And I'd also love to start getting more people on here with us. I think that like we have a network of friends and people that like, I don't necessarily like, you probably remember from when you were listening before, but like, I don't necessarily want to do like a life story of these guys, but to just like have them on and talk about what's going on in their shop right now, like pertinent information that's relatable to what people are seeing on social media, cause like you look at it and a lot of our friends, like as they're scaling, like they don't have the time to interact on Instagram. They don't have the time to talk. They don't have the time to do anything but just make stuff. So to get them on here to get like an hour and a half conversation that just kind of shares what their not comeuppances, but what they have going on in this moment, I think would be pretty digestible to a lot of people.
Absolutely. I agree.
What do you think, Ken? Are you still there? Or are you just this black screen? All right. Well, I guess we lost him, which is funny because he's the only one that can control like when this podcast, the recording part of this ends. So like I guess what do we do? Do we just hit the leave button,
he's coming back on.
Buffering. Right, hold up.
Buffering.
I got a bunch of echo here. Hold up. All right. So I don't know if you guys could hear me at all. I was talking, so it's probably recording me as well while I'm talking. So I'm probably just talking shit over you guys while you're already talking. Yeah, my internet cut out. So, I could hear Alex and see Alex this whole time, but I couldn't hear Jim. And so I just ended up opening Riverside in a new window or a new tab, and then it worked for whatever reason. Like it worked in a new tab, but it wouldn't work in my old one. But
so we're now talking to imposter. We're talking to imposter Ken. We're not talking to the real Ken. We're talking to a shadow version of yourself.
AI.
Nice.
Well, we did just kind of wrap this episode up. and we were like kind of pondering as to how we were going to exit because you were gone. But now you're back. So
you guys are just stuck indefinitely until I can turn it off.
More or less, I was like, do we just leave or should we like just wait till he respawns or what? Anyways, well, cool guys. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. I got to get moving. Machines got to get running. I had 2 slow starts. I'm still on Montana time. So like, usually I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and like I found myself waking up at 8 or 8:30 and being exhausted. So it's taken me a little bit of time to get moving, but that means that I have to take a little bit more advantage of my afternoon time. So I am going to dip. To all you listeners out there, thank you for checking in with us today. It's been a pleasure as always. I continue to find a lot of value in talking about this stuff. And I got to be honest, leading up to this podcast inception, I was starting to feel pretty lonely out here in the shop, and having a couple of buddies to BS with at least once a week has really brightened my day. So thank you guys for being out here and spitballing and encouraging me and continuing to share everything that's on your mind. So I hope you guys have a great week. And I will catch up with you later.
Sounds good, dude.
Take it easy.
All right, man. Later,
guys.
Later.
All right, it's stopping now.